Right. We getting started now? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll kick us off this week for a change, and we can go up. So, yeah, this topic's been on my mind because last week spent all week offsite in Toronto with one of my clients, an AI chip company, and a lot of the sort of general conversation was about this whole future of this whole toolchain really is coming together. And one extreme version of the vision is you can just tell an AI a story and it will produce a movie. So if you think about all the steps that go from paper napkin, like high concept story, then story treatment or outline of like 1 or 2 pages, then you have several versions of a screenplay, then you have storyboarding and like breakdown into scenes and stuff, and then you actually have the raw shoot, and you have the editing, and then it comes together as an actual movie. So not only are all the individual stages getting sort of automated piece by piece, they're also getting refactored in the process. So I think this workflow that this article describes, um, it has some evidence of both. There's a lot of automation, of course, a lot of iteration and glue as well. But like, for example, the idea of sampling and cloning a voice completely changes that stage of the workflow, right? I mean, if you can produce lip syncing from stock footage, then you've kind of replaced the whole shooting part of movie making with as many takes as you like, because the actors don't get tired and can keep doing takes. You can keep tweaking the dialogue in real time and um, you know seeing how they perform. So lots of things are going to change. Uh, but also, I'm thinking that it's always the case that when a new technology comes along, people um, first try to reproduce what they already do in the new medium. So people try to make, in this case, traditional movies and TV shows using this new workflow. But I think the interesting thing about this Balenciaga meme is that it actually shows the nature of the medium. Like once people get comfortable with how this new tool chain works, they won't go around making the old-fashioned type movies and TV shows. They'll make fundamentally new types of content. And yeah, this is an example. It's very remixy and not super creative, um, but definitely a type of uh, I don't know, video artifact that people really wouldn't think of making before because it was just not quite possible. Like, how would you even do this without AI technology? It's not clear. So I'm really curious about all three. It's like, how does the toolchain get automated? How does the toolchain get refactored? And then how do people actually use the medium to make new messages as opposed to like new medium, old message? So that's one part that interests me. But the other thing I've been thinking about is everywhere I go, people come up with the idea of we are having all these meetings, we are recording them. Maybe we even have AI bots in the meetings, like in the Zoom meetings for Rover. We have the couple of bots I think that Jenna used added to the meeting. So you've got that in Summer of Protocols. We're doing guest talks, and again, we have an AI bot listening and summarizing. So we also basically have the reverse workflow coming up. And this is true in private companies and intranets as well. Like internal meetings, nobody remembers what's said. Most people are like half tuned out. So it would be nice to like have a summarized record of internal meetings. So the two tool chains of like going from like idea to like creative generated movies and videos, and the other direction going from like videos of real world things, like conference calls are the perfect example, and to output summaries that can be archived and like easily referenced. Both directions of like video workflows are getting really interesting, and I think this is still too complicated and unwieldy for someone like me to use. But I'm kind of looking forward to a few years from now where it's sort of non-janky enough that somebody like me can use it. So right now, when I compare to blogging, I think around 2001, 2002, blogging was still too annoying for most people to use. When I started in 2007, it was still janky, but easy enough for someone like me to get into. And by 2017, it turned into things like Substack, where it was like drop dead simple. Anybody could do it with like no special skills. So I think generative video or analyzed video is kind of at the 2003 stage or so. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. Jenna?
Yeah, the couple of threads for me are one, do we still say jump the shark? Right, that was from a while ago. But I am curious about how long, how much staying power this particular Balenciaga thing has. It's pretty darn catchy. So it could actually, have a longer shelf life than a lot of memes that have come around recently, and I'd be curious to watch that. Another thread for me is I was going to talk about the tool is currently quite janky, and this kid or guy was motivated to hang in there because I guess it's what he's kind of building his own brand on, is doing these kinds of things. I didn't click around on his site much, but let's say that's why. And then as I'm reading through his instructions, how often like a ChatGPT instruction actually embeds, I would call them like tricks, like, oh, he knew to ask for an aspect ratio, and then he realizes he asked for the wrong aspect ratio. So how many, little engineering prompt tricks do you need to know to make the whole thing work at all? So I'm with you, Venkat, that not yet from me. I don't want to spend time learning it, but it was fun to see what can be done. The other thing that just really jumped out at me that I think it was Drew Austin in one of his recent newsletters, Neeling was linked to Catherine Liu, who's new to me, but her Substack is new enough that last night, kind of fun, I'll just say I've run out of series to watch on TV, so I was left with thinking of something better to do. And so I read through her whole Substack, and I'll drop them in the links, but she mentioned a Walter Benjamin piece that probably everybody but me already knew about. I don't know why. I knew about Walter Benjamin, kind of, sort of, but not as a part of his fandom. But apparently, this piece of his was at the previous technical innovation time, where cameras and stuff were happening, and they were new. And so I think I get this from that basically you can't fight this. It's all the efforts that people are going to have to try to shut this down. And yeah, it probably is morally suspect that they built these models on just stuff they grabbed from everybody, especially artists existing. But you're not going to put that water back in the genie. No, whatever that metaphor is I'm reaching for. It's out, and now what are we going to do with it? That just is another huge wave of this coming on right now. And so I think those were my first order thoughts, passing on to Ben now.
Yeah, so I found this interesting. There are parts that I felt like they didn't need to use AI for. Like I felt like a lot of this could have just done by hand. Like the only thing that really needed is sort of the image generation, maybe the lip syncing, and the animations and weaving everything together. So a lot of that was done by hand. And obviously, I think the quality is not great, but obviously that will improve as time goes on. I do find this idea of using AI, and Venkat's right. This is very much something that, it's something that could have been done outside of AI. Like you could get actors to do this sort of thing. In fact, it would have been kind of ultra trivial to do it because it's very derivative, and you're just mashing sort of two different things together to see what happens. The thing is, the cost would have been insane. Like getting actual people to do this would have been a massive pain for something that feels very trivial, and it is trivial, and that's what makes the AI interesting. It's something, the cost of doing this has fallen down to sort of like the actual level of effort, as opposed to all the real world stuff you'd have to do to actually get this. So so that's fascinating. I'm not sure you can do anything like this except through like sort of very extremely derivative things like Balenciaga or Balenciaga, I can't pronounce it, but basically that sort of stuff, like with Harry Potter, with like with the very very famous movies, very famous actors. It's one where there's a large quantity of material to digest. But I mean, it is a very fascinating evolution of a meme format. I think you're right. This is still too much work for it. Like, meme generator takes a couple minutes to throw something together in your standard meme format, or maybe you play around with Paint or Photoshop for 15 to 20 minutes, maybe up to an hour to make a good meme. But this is like almost a full day's work just to make something. But I mean, obviously the effort will go down. I think he used AI a bit too much. I'm not sure what the large scale impacts of this is. This still feels very niche to me. But it is pushing towards something that couldn't have been done without it, which is where the interesting things will eventually come from. Because it's when you get to stuff that that would have never been made at all, except for the tool, that the real essence of the tool comes through. Anyway, I think I'll continue to pass it up. I'm not sure how useful that was, but John Raj.
Thanks, Ben. I've been playing with these image generation and video generation generation tools for the last 3 or 4 months, and like I've never been able to produce like the quality which is actually shown in their promo video or the ad, which is or the artwork people show. So like I've used some like tools in Canva, and then I have used Midjourney. But whenever I give a prompt, it doesn't I don't get the quality what I want, and then it's like a lot of iteration to get actually to exact specification what I want. So the tools are still a lot. It's almost seems like learning a new affordance to actually know the relation between what you are actually prompting and the output you will get. So it's the same as like learning a new tool of like editing videos instead of clicking or something. Like we are actually trying to learn. It almost feels like that. So it's not as easy as they show. And for example, I was using the Runway ML app yesterday. I registered for it, and I was trying to make a intro video for our streams. And the video has a small Yak Collective logo in middle, and it's not a complete circle. So it's like a partial circle. So I wanted to make it so that like I could make a mask so that only the icon central logo is seen and the rest of the part is like fading out. But it took me a long time just to get that mask, and because it's not a full circle, it would have been easier for me just to open a video editing tool and create a circle instead of trying to prompt to get it. So it's like I was like it was really frustrating to use it, but yeah. So that was the situation of the tool. And like about the prompt, that what kind of parallel tool chain will emerge. I don't think there will be any like parallel tool chain. So what will happen is like there are a lot of tools already available, and they will be integrated into like the tool vendors will start integrating all these generative AI stuff into their own tooling, and it will start just help in automating the stuff that is already there instead of parallel tool chain emerging. That is what I feel. Yeah, those were some initial thoughts, and passing on to Anant.
Hey, thank you. I thought the article was cool in that it was like slightly behind the scenes look of some of these new AI generated videos, and I thought it was. I mean, I agree with. I guess the consensus broadly is that the tool chains are not quite there yet, but it was fascinating for me to see the sort of the work that he was able to, Taylor Gold, I think, was able to produce. And I'm also sort of reminded of the article I think Sachin wrote some time ago about Balenciaga's apathy, I think. And I think in the article he was discussing about how the sort of Balenciaga brand is all about minimum emotiveness and the sort of facial expressions. I mean, they tend to, the brand at least, with all their images tend to be not very emotive, and in fact, in that article, he goes on to say that it would be challenging to do videos with more messy human emotions, with more messy reactions. So that's sort of what I'm reminded of reading this article. In that, I guess echoing the troubles with general prompting in general, like getting the prompts to work in a way that it can accurately reproduce sort of human reactions and human emotions would be hard, but it's still impressive what they were able to do, considering even I'm on the same boat as Anuraj. I've tried playing around with these tools for a while now, and I find it pretty hard to generate a standard set of images in a way that I want. So it's pretty impressive from that perspective. But again, from the perspective of like just general videos that humans seem to enjoy, this seems like a sort of ways to go, and the tool chains to get developed. But I'm also reminded of like looking at these videos, I'm reminded of like the other video editing tools that I've used previously, like Camtasia, for example. I was looking sort of at a company where we didn't necessarily have a marketing team, so I had to make some videos. But it's pretty easy for me to pick up and make some sort of animated videos to explain some technical concepts. So while people like making videos with sort of people emoting and reacting seems like the leading edge of generative AI videos, it seems like there are other applications where slightly more, I guess, Cartesian coordinated frames of reference could be created, I would think, with sort of better prompting. And I'm sort of, I've been also reading obviously a lot of the sort of the research side of this, and it's very interesting to see how they're going to converge. And even in this example, it seems that you use ChatGPT to generate the prompts for Midjourney. So there is a sort of LLMs in the loop, or like some sort of a generative models in the loop. It seems to be the way forward. So hoping the sort of the tool chains that's going to get evolve out of this sort of new breakthroughs should make it easier for people to use, just like the video editor example that I used. Like when people looked at the videos that I was able to conjure up with my amateurish skills, it seemed as though I was creative, but I was not really. I was just sort of very mechanical in my approach. But the video editing tools had all these animations and things like that. That was pretty easy to use. So I think for going forward, the sort of the creativity that is typically in the hands of few, or like few people have natural aptitude for, this sort of AI based tool chains could augment more people, and that should lead to very sort of interesting world. And I'm also coincidentally, I think Jenna mentioned Walter Benjamin. I'm reading sort of a bunch of blog posts from an artist who's actually reading the book, the Walter Benjamin's, I think, The Art of Mechanical Reproduction, and sort of sharing some parallels to the current developments in AI. And I find it very interesting from a sort of the artist's perspective that they're very excited about it, and the sort of new frontiers that it'll open seem to be quite fascinating to them. So that's also interesting to me. I'm also like, I mean, the other thought is I'm reminded of like the sort of progression of film technology to digital technology to so on and so forth, in just the art of high-end video making. And I'm very interested to see how some of the best creators in the world will use it in more sort of professional production environments. But I'll stop there.
One thing I do want to second with that is I played around with Stable Diffusion, I don't know, a few months ago. And I definitely got the feeling that it was much harder than people seem to think it was. One of the things that I kept running into is that because I didn't have a really great vision of what I wanted going in, I would put a prompt and I would get something that was very mediocre. And then I would be like, is that what I wanted? How do I change this? I would get lost in it. And then I would forget what I was actually trying to do. So I found that you need a strong vision and a strong will to push through the endless sort of okay-ish, maybe kind of images that were being generated to actually start digging into what you actually want. I thought that was a fascinating experience. I haven't done it in a long time now. I got it on, so it was still an interesting experience.
That's kind of an interesting observation because I think it's the opposite of how I make stuff, which is I basically never start with a strong vision of like the end product I want to create. It's pretty much always you get like some minor inspiration, like, in this case, something like, wouldn't it be fun if you could mash up Balenciaga and Harry Potter, right? Like that level of tweet level inspiration, maybe. And then you just go and start playing with like the medium, and whether it's like, pencil and paper or typing in a blog or with video tools. And at some point, it kind of like turns into an improvised composition. So I have a very improvisational style, kind of like, raga music versus composed music performance. But I think that actually brings up the same weakness, but from a different angle of this toolchain, because it's so complex. It takes too long to kind of like get in the groove of improvising with it before you can start jamming. Like if you imagine like a typical jamming style art form like jazz, like say once you learn how to play the piano or cello or something and you get good enough, you can forget about the instrument and like just riff on a couple of notes with your friends, and maybe a theme emerges and then you start playing and a performance emerges, right? Here it's like I never got to the point where I was comfortable enough with the medium that I could sort of like forget about it and start like improvising and riffing. So I've played around more with the text generation than the image generation tools, but the same holds in both cases. Like I gave prompts to ChatGPT to like make up stories and blog posts and stuff, but it never got comfortable enough where I could like jam with it. And image generation, I tried a few things, but again, it was like good kicking the tires, but it didn't like become an improv medium. So yeah, same thing, but for a different production style as opposed to Envision, like starting with improv theme, still doesn't quite work.
Like it seems like to me that the promo videos of all these tools is like you go from one affordance to the other, from like text to text based to image based, but like it does not seem to be like that. It seems to me like it's really a new form of affordance that people are really not used to, and then you have to learn and go through the work of knowing the tool itself.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if I think about it that way, the tools to think about are not these like tool-like things per se, but something like the Burduck bot on Blue Sky, which is GPT plus a wrapper that makes it talk like a duck in a particular way. But talking to the duck feels natural, and like improvising fun and silly conversations in dialogue with it, that seems natural. And there, even though it's a text-only bot, I don't think of it as writing. And I can imagine if that bot gets the ability to like process images and produce images, I can have like an easy multimodal chat with it the way I would with a human being, which is like, share a photo with it, see its reaction, maybe it shares a photo or meme back. So that kind of like creative loop where the medium is actually another human-like entity as opposed to a tool. I think that's where we'll end up, where it'll be like a, I don't know, human-like partnership. Like I remember the few times I've had to like get professional creative work done and I've had to work with a designer. This, I think when AI feels slightly good, it feels like talking to a human designer and getting work out of them. Like, have a conversation about a logo or a promo video or something, and they kind of like dialogue with you, and then at the same time they're working with their tools, and you can kind of see the work evolve and like discuss it in real time. So I think I first experienced that process maybe in 2000 when I was working with a designer to produce a logo, And it feels like that, where you can see that they're doing things that are way more complex than you know how to do, but you still understand what's going on and can have like a lower skilled dialogue to direct it.
I'm curious about one further piece, if I can jump in, about the author of the piece suggests at one point, and maybe somebody has been sniffing around, but that Balenciaga itself was in fact behind this. And, you know, the Friday calls, I'm probably the only one who keeps bringing it up, but elite capture or the elites fighting with each other, and the rest of us are kind of just tossed around on those seas. So that, you know, in my more cynical moments, it's like anything that becomes famous, it's because one group of elites suddenly was pushing it, and it might feel like it was organic from the bottom, but it's almost never is. You know, again, I don't really think that's true, but in my more cynical moments, I kind of do. So, who's behind the Balenciaga videos themselves? Does anybody know? And the uptake of all this stuff, you know, top down versus bottom up, it'll be that. I think that's just one more whole piece that I'm curious if anyone has thoughts about.
One thing I sort of I'm thinking about sort of a speculative a speculation on the sort of progress of these tool chains. I'm reminded of the like another article we read some time ago on Newsphere on the subconscious knowledge graph, subconscious protocol, I think, or Newsphere protocol or subconscious is the product, where you could sort of have your own knowledge graph with an AI in the loop, where you could develop it and you can prompt it, you can sort of evolve it along with you as your sort of core thinking partner. And that sort of will make or result in sort of everybody having their own unique versions of these models tuned to their sort of knowledge graph and specific things that they have prompted it to do versus like a standard tool chain that everybody uses the same way. This sort of creative tool chains, like making videos or making other types of creative work, it seems to me that might be the nature of evolution of here, but that's a highly speculative take, I think, from a point of view of given where we are. But that's sort of where I think this can fit meaningfully in terms of the sort of the tools evolve along with the user, and sort of how good the output of your tools is directly a result of how good the user sort of helped evolve the tool to produce the output. So that's sort of where I think. I mean, I'm interested to see what people think of that, but that's sort of where I think that's my speculative take on the evolution of this tool chain.
Any more thoughts in response or further thoughts? These tools are a little simpler. We could do what we did with the crypto tools early last year and just have like experiment sessions playing with them. But I think they're still too complex for like collaborative play sessions. It'll take too long to do anything with them. But maybe we could try. So if anybody wants to volunteer to like lead a session that's basically playing with tools, we can do that. Anyway. Right, any other thoughts?
Actually, we could try that a YouTube summary thing with our own videos, like just as a experiment during these sessions.
Yeah, that might be good.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, let's try that with one of the Yacht Rover videos at some point. All right. So we are done early today, so see you guys next week.
See you guys.